You built the business. Now, build the man. This is the Ben Price experience.
Dan, who are
Ben.
you and why are you here?
So, well, firstly, you've answered one of those questions for me already. My name is Dan. Dan Meredith is my full name. To give you the standard kind of like, what do you do kind of thing. So I am an author. I've written a few books that have done quite well. I have a coaching business. I have a gym. I get to speak on stages and I help people with both their businesses and their lives. Sort of productivity is a big theme of mine. That's kind of where I started, is like how to get more productive, because I had so much to do back in the day. I run a big community of about 18,000 sort of entrepreneurs, business owners, personal development fans, and I am currently 45. I'm on what's called probably like my second mountain in life. So if I've achieved lots of things, basically all the things I set out to achieve, I'd achieved, and there's a couple of big things that I haven't, and I've kind of realized that those were important for me for my next part of my journey. So I've climbed one mountain, got to the top, and then there's a great book and it's called The Second Mountain. It was given to me by my very first mentor, and now I've sort of reached that precipice. And then you realize there's a down, but then there's another mountain off in the distance. So I'm now climbing the second mountain. So I hope that's given a very quick synopsis of me. And why am I here? Well, the simple answer is you did a lovely post the other day letting people know about, what your mission is, your journey, what you're trying to do. Somebody saw me speak at a festival called Ideas Fest, tagged me in onto that. We struck up a conversation and I jumped at the opportunity to say yes. I'd be more than happy to share hopefully some wisdom and probably some nonsense with your listeners.
Well, thank you for being here. I really appreciate you.
You're welcome.
That's great. What is the second mountain?
So the whole concept of the book was the first mountain is often where we do the things that society, culture says we do. So it's, you get your job, you get established in your career, house, family, all this, just the stuff, the normal stuff you do. And you get the things. So you've got, the house, the car, the family, the job, you've done all the things you're supposed to do. It generally kicks in around 40s, it seems to be, for a lot of people. Some people it could be younger, some people it could be later, but it seems to be that's a kind of common sort of age. I'm 45, and it's when you sort of like, you kind of get to the top of what you think you wanted, and you have these things, and you've got achievements and milestones, and you've done certain things, and you kind of like, oh, I'm not maybe necessarily feeling how I thought I'd feel, or maybe there's some unfulfillment or some things that you haven't done yet. And you realize that there's this whole other mountain that you can climb. Unfortunately, I think you have to kind of generally descend into the valley a little bit. You often go into sort of places where you're not so happy, maybe a little bit darker, and, realizing that maybe what you were chasing wasn't what you actually want. So for me personally, I've got a special needs sister. My why, for want of a better phrase, has always been to be able to provide a future for her. I did very, very well in my corporate career, but I was limited by just time. There's only so many hours a day you can work, so I did well there, but I was, burning out doing that sort of thing. And so sort of entrepreneurship and having my own business as a vehicle where maybe I could multiply that and maybe give me, as well as a fun life as well, give me the future for my sister. So my own personal second mountain. So I'd put a lot of things to one side by choice, and not going to say regrets, because I've gone through that phase where I've realized that was something, but the other half and the family is something I actually I didn't know I wanted. It was something I thought I was not anti or anything. I just didn't think that was something that I wanted as part of my journey, but that's now part of my second mountain. So my second mountain is to meet the person, have the family, conscious I'm going to be an older dad. I'm already aware from that, which is why I stay as healthy and as fit as I can, because I'm going to need it to hang on as long as I can. And I think before, when I first started, I wanted to help people. That helping people turned into a business. Business then became, as it does, it's about revenue and profits and all that kind of stuff. And so my sort of next adventure is to try and impact lives in a different way. So I've done a couple of books. So I want more people to be happy, but that happiness isn't kind of a happy clappy, let's all be, smiling and singing and stuff like that. Because you're not going to be happy all the time. For me, happiness is a combination of feeling happy, but having success, finances, resources, time. So, basically you can have everything, but it takes time. So that's my next thing, is to help people be, quote, happy, but that means being, wealthy, productive, happy, healthy, all of those things in together. I'm still working on what the kind of like wanky mission statement would be for that one, but that's the kind of overview of where I'm off to now.
Right. Nice. So how do you define what happiness would be for some, or for you? Maybe it's for you, and then.
Thing is that it's a great question, because happiness for everyone is completely different. And that's the beautiful thing. So when I'm working with, a client or someone I'm working with one-to-one, and, that question comes up, it's often business related. We start with, it's kind of like happiness is sort of a part of, the kind of generally growing a business or building an empire or improving what they already have. It's different for every single person. So for me, obviously the feeling of happiness, if you're happy all the time, I think you're probably ignoring some things. Life is not always going to be happy, but generally being happier majority of the time. But for me, my own personal definition is to be able to do what I want with who I want when I want, and have the resources, time and freedom to allow that to happen. So basically, I just want to be able to do whatever the fuck I want, whenever the fuck I want to do it. And we're not talking ridiculous things like buying super yachts and spending stupid amounts of money, just a combination of, that sort of time, freedom, money triad, having that nailed so that I can just live my life however I choose to live it, and also have enough to make sure that, my dad has passed away, but my mum and sister have a great life, that my sister's future is secure, and honestly that I can just help other people. I mean, I get it's really cheesy when people say they get, oh yeah, I just do this because I want to help people, and it's like, well, one of the chapters in my first book is called Be Selfish, and I say this to people, it's like, you are still being a little bit selfish by helping people, which is a wonderful thing to do. It's a wonderful thing to do. So I'm not in any way taking away from people who see themselves as the person who wants to give and help and make a difference, but that makes you feel good. You're getting a kick out of it. So you are actually getting a good feeling from helping people. So there's nothing wrong with that, but also it's just that honesty piece and saying, if you don't want to earn money, earn more money or generate revenue, have a business or any of the kind of stuff that I do day to day with people, and you just want to help people, that's great. But you're still getting something out of it. And I also say, if you have more money, don't have to be excessive, but more money and more time, it just makes life easier. And I think we can all do with a little bit more money and a little bit more time. My goal is to try and help people realize those goals, whether that's an extra few hundred, few thousand, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. I've got clients who wants 1 million plus more a month, and we go in for these crazy goals. So everyone is different, but your version of happiness is completely down to you. And I would suggest if anchoring your happiness on achieving, say, certain financial goals, physical goals, like looking a certain way, having certain things, but go for it. Like, go for it and see how you feel. Because I did that. I thought I would be, quote, someone when I achieved, X revenue or X size business, or I had a 6-pack or a certain, look partner. And I remember, thinking, oh, I don't feel any different. So it's that, no, so it's that kind of whole happiness is an inside game thing. So yeah, so there you go. That's a summation of one simple question. And and obviously if you haven't podcasted with me before, that's what we colloquially known as a tangent. So we start in one place and then we go off to another. So there's probably going to be a couple more on
I imagine
this.
so.
Yeah.
I would say in the last year I've been working with a coach, and this year I feel more peaceful.
Yes.
Do I feel more happy? Generally, I have moments of, because like you say, happiness is sort of fleeting in a moment, but I feel more peaceful. I'm not waking up with like dread every morning, and
peace is so underrated, mate. Like, honestly, if somebody robs my peace now, yes, people have bad patches, and you'd be an arsehole of a friend or family member or client, the other way around. If, you're going through a rough patch, you're like, right, goodbye, don't need you anymore, you're not adding me any peace. But peace is something that I look for. And if, the people that are in my life now don't add any stress, they are peaceful. And that waking up with peace is a beautiful, beautiful thing to aim for.
Yeah. Nice. What's the what would you say is one of the biggest defining moments of your life that's kind of steered you onto the path you're on now?
I mean, it would be losing my dad. I mean, I'd say that 2020, so this was part of the talk that I did. Obviously I was tagged in thanks to yourself. 2020 was just, I like to call it a year. And, I don't come from much money, sort of like, I'd say upper working class family. Mum and dad worked really hard. Mum had 3 jobs. Dad had a job. We didn't have much spare, but, they worked very, very hard, my mum and dad, to provide us. And, we had things, but when you look back, you realize how much your parents sacrificed. And it's like, looking back as an adult, I can see how much they didn't have so that we did. Which is why I wanted to be able to sort of, almost like return the favor. I know they didn't do it for that reason, but that was a sort of big driver for me. So I say that because the first thing that happened in my year, so I'm a speed freak. I love going fast. Ride motorbikes, like jumping out of planes, like racing cars, that sort of things. But I had 2 racing jet skis, and I've always wanted a jet ski since I was a kid. Didn't even go on one till I was 30. So started my year, I had my jet ski stolen. Now you might be thinking, boo-hoo, poor little rich boy. I mean, I'm not rich, but I'd worked hard to get them. Do you know what I mean? Like, I had worked hard to get them. And I was like, okay, but I got the call that they were stolen on the way to go to hospital to see my dad. And my dad said he was going in for just a routine checkup. And then he said something like, oh, they're just having a little having a little nose around in there, son. And I'm like, well, I'm not a doctor, Dad, and I don't work for the NHS, but I do think they have a list. And generally on that list, they've got a plan. So what's going on? And I found out my dad had had cancer for 2 years. He had some surgery done to rectify that. And then obviously what happened in 2020, we had COVID. So my first ever business was a gym. The boys that run the gym, I've known since they were teenagers. I love them dearly. It was, obviously to close a business and still make sure they were supported. So that was just, we all had the COVID bullshit that we had to deal with, which was challenging for so many different people. Then, unfortunately, my dad's cancer came back with a vengeance. He parted ways with this planet end of July. Then a couple of other personal things happened between then and Christmas, and it got to, if I remember correctly, the 9th of December. I had a conversation with my mum, and I said, it's almost over. This year is nearly done. We get the reset. And my mum never calls unless it's urgent. That's what a rule we have, because obviously we're working day. So we'll message her out the day, but my phone rings and I said to my client, my mum's calling, I got to go. Grab the call and she goes, I don't mean to worry you, son, but we've been in a car accident. And I was like, what the fuck? Is everyone okay? I said, yeah, but your sister's panicking because of obviously what happened to her previously. Now, sort of backstory here, I'm trying not to over embellish it too much, but a few years prior, my little sister had broken her neck. She had something called a hangman's fracture, so she should have, not been here. And her mental age is anywhere between sort of 5 and 10. That's just to give you kind of like a bit of a context. And she's an adult female. But she was convinced that her head was going to come off and that she was going to have to go back. So, I hopped on my motorbike, rode over to see them, just calmed her down. She was told she was fine by the doctors, but, I checked her neck and said, yeah, all good there, Spud. That's my nickname for her. We played some Uno. I hopped back on my bike and rode back home. On that ride back home, I then get hit by a car. I've never had a traffic accident in my life. I wasn't speeding. I don't speed on the roads. I go like a fucking lunatic on track days and places where I'm allowed to. Just 2 of us on the road. She accidentally slipped the clutch at a junction and hit me into a lamppost. And then I got to call my mum up and say, hey, mum, don't mean to worry you, but I've been in a car accident. So that year, I remember, so they were still in COVID. I was in the hospital bed. I think I'd had 3 or 4 cracked/broken ribs, bit of a concussion, had a bit of surgery on my legs, had a bit of Mini Cooper stuck into it. Phone had died, and I realised, Dad's gone. Dad would always be the person that'd come and get me if I needed me. All my friends were, might as well be in fucking Narnia. Like, lots of amazing best friends, but I met them online, and they're all, and all my friends, they've scattered. We're all over the country now. Didn't have a partner at the time, and I remember just thinking, I've written a book called How to Be Fucking Awesome, lying in that hospital bed thinking, this isn't fucking awesome. So that was the year where I said, right, I'm going to do something about this. And I said this in the first book, I threw myself a 24-hour pity party when I eventually got home, ate my feelings, which is basically just a lot of pizza and whispers. And then I set about to trying to get myself back to being not only successful, but, happy and fulfilled as well.
Right on.
So it was a year. It was a year.
That was a year. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. There's a lot that happened in that year. Definitely.
It was, mate. Yeah.
You spoke just now, like before we went live, about loneliness, and did the loss of your dad, did that have a big impact on that feeling?
Big impact. I remember my dad telling me, so I have my own version of this now. So he said one of the things that really helped him out, and it's common, it seems, in a lot of men, as you get older, you just get less friends. And 20 plus years ago, he decided he wanted just to do something. My dad was quite a good sportsman. He's a very good sportsman when he was younger. Played at sort of county and national level, and I think for Great Britain at running at one point. No, he was a good athlete, my dad. And he just decided he wanted to do something once a week. So he decided to say badminton. So he ended up getting my very first girlfriend's dad, my best friend's dad, 2 old neighbours, and there's a group of 5 of them. They used to call themselves the Badminton Boys. And every Thursday they would play badminton, set the worlds to right. No one drank. My dad didn't drink at that part of his life. I hadn't sort of since I was born. But they'd have like a shandy together and have a chat and set the worlds to right. And he said having them there right up into his last days was invaluable. And I realised, even though I had like genuine best friends, I didn't have anyone around me. And I realised that I thought, right, so that's the first thing I'm going to address is connection and actually being around good men who I can be open and vulnerable and share with. And, one of the things, I mean, it took a little bit of time after that, but I set my own version. There's about 4 of my other friends who I grew up with from school, who all live within a commutable distance. So we set up the Badminton Boys and we started playing badminton, and then we couldn't get courts for a couple of weeks. And now they just come around my house once a month and we eat pizza and watch Alan Partridge. And it's great. And we just talk shit and set the world to rights.
Yeah, nice. That's missing in a lot of men's lives, right?
A lot of my male friends don't have that sort of brotherhood, that group of men, that pack. It sounds a bit cheesy. You see some of these awful American people who do this kind of stuff, but that that group of men. And I decided as well, on top of that, so I had my boys there as well, but I also wanted to spend time in a more sort of higher testosterone masculine environment. So I joined a boxing club. I used to do a lot of martial arts and sort of fighting things when I was younger. Joined a boxing club. You meet all walks of fucking life in there, and there's something, I mean, again, not for everyone. I did a couple of fights, a part of the fight camp. I enjoyed sparring. There's something quite cathartic about sort of going man to man in a ring in effectively a pair of shorts, having a scrap. But I used to play rugby when I was younger, and I missed that team environment. Didn't really fancy rugby now. Injuries do not heal as quick as they used to in their 40s, and they last for a lot longer. So then started just joining places. Like I joined the boxing club, I joined the gym, got a PT, started going to some of the group body weight and gymnastics classes just to meet other people, and then that really made a huge difference to my happiness overall. I started like building little groups of men that I could hang out with, and women as well, but I had my boys again, which is something that I'd been missing.
Yeah, talk to me about masculinity and what's your take on that? And do I actually really want to start a little Instagram thing where I just go and film people and ask them, like, what is it? What is a masculine man? So
do you know what? That's a really good question. It's especially nowadays, it's so hard to define. And I do think men have lost their way a little bit. I think a lot of the messages that are on, especially on social media, of what a man is supposed to be, there's so many different ends of the spectrum. From, you got one end, it's all, you need to be alpha and drive sports cars and just have a bevy of hot women and make loads of money. Then you got the other end, it's all about being super spiritual and loving and crying and hugging together. Then you've got your sciencey lot, and it's like, this is what we need to be doing from a kitchen. And it's just like, fucking hell, can we just pick something? So I think for me, it's a very good question. I'll try and define it as best I can. I think a good man keeps his word, does what he says he's going to do, looks after those that need looking after, as well as looking after himself so that he can do that. I think he should be able to provide in some fashion. I think he should be able to protect in some fashion. And yeah, that's my little summation of it. I think, and again, I think, again, having good morals, good values, good boundaries. And it's one of those things, like, I say this to like my team or the people I'm working with, like, when I ask, the wonderful team I've got working for me, but they don't necessarily want to, maybe they could post something about some of it, because they've all got like their own little sort of side businesses and stuff as well, which is something I encourage them to do. Like, or, they've got access to the company credit card, for example, certain things we need. And I said, if you think you might get in trouble, or this is a bit dodgy, or, will Dan be pissed off at this? Don't do it. Like, we all kind of know generally what's right or wrong. And I think just kind of, being able to have a good moral code that you stand by is a really important thing as a man. I mean, you have to define that code for yourself, but I've shared some of the things that I believe and that I do my best to be as a man.
Nice. How confusing do you feel it is at the moment for men? And
As I
what do you
mentioned
think, like,
from
the impact is?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned from some of the examples there, it's like there's so much noise, and there's just so
Yeah,
many people saying that to be a man, you should do
fast
this, or you
car.
should be this, or this is, and it's like, my dad, he wasn't perfect, but he got up every day, he went to work every day, never let me down. He kept his word, kept us safe. There's always food on the table. Never once did he complain to take me any of my little dorky little hobbies or games or anything like that. He was a good man. And, that's, looked after my mum, my sister. They were married for 40 odd years before he passed. He's a good dude. And I'm just kind of like, it doesn't really have to be that complicated. And I think there is something that I struggle with, and I've said this publicly before, is I never want to be perceived as, incapable, unable to, provide or protect, or to look weak. And that, not looking weak, especially if you are the provider or the breadwinner for the family, I've had chats with male clients over the years, and that's been a worry, because they don't want to worry their partner or maybe their team or anyone like that, so they don't know who to talk to. And obviously we end up talking because they can talk to me safely, and I'm not going to judge them, and hopefully give them some good solutions to fix that problem for them. But it's a very, very confusing time, and with a lot of things in the media, the phrase toxic masculinity, you hear quite a lot. There's lots of quote influencers saying how men should be, shouldn't be, and saying the negative things. And it's just kind of like, yeah, I will admit, men have done some fucking horrific things, terrible things. So have women as well. And, but also men have done lots of really good things as well, too. And it's like, I think there's just this horrible...
You just can't just kind of go like that, can you?
No, and there's so much
All men.
division. There's so much division nowadays. Like, you have to be in this camp or that camp, and it's like, no, you don't actually. I mean, realistically, being a good human isn't that tricky, and you probably know if you're being a bit of an arse.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, like, keeping your word is like a big thing, isn't it? And
Yeah.
and honesty.
Yeah.
Like, actually, this is how I'm feeling, and it's not It's okay. It's not weak to admit that that's how you're feeling. In fact, that's honesty.
Yeah.
And even
But
if
it's being able to share that in a place where it's not going to bite you in the ass. So I know, like, my business friends are mindful. If they say it's the wrong person, you know, it could get out in business and they could look weak. Equally, you know, it's happened to me in the past where I went through a rougher patch, business wise. I think it was bad. It was a long time ago, but just things weren't as good. Down to me, which I will completely admit, because I had a bit of a spike and I was like, yay, everything's awesome all the time. I don't have to do anything anymore. Turns out you do. And, you know, my partner decided to jump ship because, you know, she'd perceived me as not the man that she had got with, which is fine, which is completely her right. And I, you know, do wish her well. So it is difficult because you kind of think, you know, who do I talk to without, you know, putting my burden? I don't ever want to be a burden. Don't want to worry that person, but you do need it. And I hate the term, and I fucking hate this term so much. But, you know, as men, you do need a safe place, safe space where you can have a conversation, get what's on your chest off, not be judged, you know, have people, you know, guide you, give you suggestions. And these need to be good people as well, good men. And be able to sort of share freely without worrying about repercussions. So I know a lot of my male friends and clients don't tell people stuff because they don't want that blowback. They don't want it to be used against them in the future or currently. So they just bottle it all in. Just be a man. Just bottle it down into a nice black hole until it becomes a heart attack. Excellent.
That's
Great way
really
of living.
good. That's really like masculinity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bottling it down.
Bottle it down.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think, you know, I know what you mean about that safe space thing, but the men in that space also need to be safe. And I think we don't really have the tools. I often say as men, we're encouraged to speak up and like go, oh yeah, be vulnerable. No man really wants to be vulnerable.
No.
But then
when
when they
against you a lot of the times, which is the problem. That's it.
Yeah, but also when they do, there's no if you didn't have the tools and the sort of maturity or the peacefulness or the groundedness to deal with my situation, then you would just be like, oh, come on, mate, just you know,
just go for a pint. Yeah,
exactly.
We both said the same thing. Yeah.
Let's have a beer then, shall we?
Yeah.
Right. Good. And I've done that before I knew or understood.
But you made a great point there. Like, I don't drink alcohol. I haven't drunk alcohol for 7 or 8 years now. But that was also a thing that we used to do. You would go to the pub with your mates, not necessarily to get hammered, and you would have a pint or two and have a chat.
Not to get hammered.
You know, you see how many pubs now being. I mean, even just where I live, so many old pubs that I used to go to are now like coffee shops and cafes and stuff. And it's like, where do we go to hang out? Where do we find our chaps to make friends with? And equally, there's a certain point in your life as well as you become a grown up. You kind of like, how do you make friends?
Yeah,
it sounds like a weird thing, but it's like you got you got the friends from school or friends from work, but then you kind of like, oh no,
we're not practiced at it.
Yeah.
And especially as an entrepreneur, I don't know if you find that, but as an entrepreneur, it's sort of, I don't know, it almost feels like it's a layer harder in a way.
Because we're all, I mean, that's why I try and get to as many events and meetups, and I put them on myself in my own business because, you know, so my brand is called Coffee with Dan, and I literally said to people, right, £5 each, which is just going to cover the cost of your coffee, and just so I know you're coming, I found a really nice cafe on the beach in Weston-super-Mare, and I said, right, let's all have a coffee. That's it. And I said, there's no value. I'm teaching fuck all. It is just hang out. And I just did it on a whim. And we had like 35 people turn up. So bear in mind, 35 people turned up from all over just to sit and have a coffee. And everyone loved it because they had a connection. They had fun. There was no agenda. I did no steering. I maybe introduced a few people by name. And then that's it. I did nothing. Simple. Zero. And people loved it.
Well, it's the same as the campsite run. It's like, it's a fire. It's a walk.
A fire.
That's kind of it.
Yeah.
It's
but
really
we don't need much. That's it.
No. The less, the less there is, the better, actually.
Definitely. So that's my my sort of take on it from an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, that's useful. How do you, so when you experience stressful situation now, do you have like a process? How do you deal with setbacks?
I'm a big fan of sort of stoicism, stoic philosophy. You can't sort of see, but I'll lean over. But a few of those books back there are sort of basically sort of stoic philosophical books. I've got a few little systems in place. If I have a personal funk, sometimes you just wake up and everything's just shit. So I have a real, so my own personal one, I don't mind sharing this. I put on, it was just a song that brings me joy, is Reef, Put Your Hands On. I'm older than you, so you may not remember that, but it's a song from my youth. It just makes me smile. I put that song on repeat. I walk into town, I buy myself a bubble tea, and I buy a magazine. I know that might sound really, really simple. But that's my little, if everything, I just fucking hate life and I'm miserable or sad or whatever, that's my just little thing. I'll just go do that. But generally, I've got a trusted group of people, both male and female, who can give me different perspectives, who are a message away. And one thing that I learned from a friend of mine, so we generally just send each other stupid fucking reels and memes and general chit chat. But if I need a chat, one of the things I'll send is I'll just say something like, hey, I'm going through X at the moment. Have you got the space, time, headspace, whatever, for a chat? And I found that's quite a respectful way of doing it, because most of your mates will be like, yeah, of course I'll hop on a call. But I'm like, no, you in a good place? Have you got the time? Have you got the emotional energy? Can you hold a bit of space for me whilst I unload on you? And I find that's a really respectful way of asking for help. It's like, are you in a good spot? Have you got time? And, my friends know this now. And it was like, spoke to a friend the other day, not the day, other month, and just going through some stuff and messaged her. And I said, going through some of this stuff at the moment, just sort of processing a few things. Have you got some time to go through it? And she was like, look, launching today, launching tomorrow. Are you okay? If you're not okay, we can hop on. Fine, as just not feeling great. I said, can you wait until Friday? I was like, of course I can. We had a chat on Friday, but even just knowing I had that to do it, but that's a kind of a respectful way that it's generally, mate, it's a conversation. And also, you never feel bad for going and moving your body. So I'll always say, if I'm a bit, shitty situation, pissed off, someone's annoyed me, just life be lifing, a walk, I'll go to the gym, I'll go hit the heavy bag for a while, kind of depending on what I need, really. But I'll go generally lift something, hit something, move my body. That tends to be quite a good, it doesn't fix it, but it gets, you get some endorphins. And again, you never feel bad for doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I found was just like long walks and long bike rides and long runs. You just sort of, it's amazing how much you process without realizing you're processing it.
Yeah. And if you are, I'm very mindful how I say this. So I've had people who are medically trained who said I probably have some form of ADHD. I've not been diagnosed, and I've don't plan to. I quite like how I am and how I operate, for example, but I also find as well, sometimes having some repetitive tasks like tidying up the flat, building something, just something which is a little bit mindless, like tidying, cleaning, moving things around, sorting things out. So I've got something to distract part of my brain whilst the other part of my brain does the processing. That's also worked really well for me as well. I just like, right, I'm going to sort out the spare bedroom today, or I'm going to build this desk, or I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to build this or whatever. That sort of thing tends to help quite a lot as well.
Yeah, I can relate. My son has recently got some building blocks, like big Lego, basically. And I like find myself just doing it with him.
How's your son?
Today he wasn't here, and I was doing it on the phone.
It's awesome. I got loads of friends who love Lego. How old is your son, by the way?
He's 15 months.
15 months. Okay, so he's too young for me to sabotage for you, because otherwise I'd have sent you some Warhammer stuff, thus ruining your savings for the next 10 years or so. And so, for those of you who don't know, when I was a kid, I was a big Warhammer 40,000 Space Marines nerd. I've got hugely back into it as a kid, but that's another thing that I do. So if I am in one of those moments, I will build and paint some of my little models, and I don't give a fuck if people think it's cool or not. Henry Cavill does it, and he's handsome as anything, and I think he's an adorable human being. So if it's good enough for Henry, it's good enough for Dan.
Absolutely. Yeah. Amazing. So beyond financial success, How would you define fulfillment for you?
I mean, for me now, like the next phase would be to, find my person and, explore the whole family thing. That would be, on the personal side of things, that's something I would like to explore. Yet again, conscious, have left it later. Had to do the work thing first. Or sorry, no, I'll correct myself. I chose to do the work thing first. So I was aware that, I wanted to be in a position where I could have maybe more time, money, freedom if I did have children so that I could enjoy that. Conscious I wouldn't have as much time with them because I'd be older, but I'd have more quality time. So that was my sort of structure there. And professionally, it is to genuinely impact more lives in a positive way. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to lie to you and say I have that bit defined right now. I'm in a really good position where I've just come off the back of a really crazy few months of growth and talking and launching things and writing a new book and all this kind of stuff. So I almost don't know what's next, but that's quite exciting. But I know I want to help people live better lives, earn more money, have more freedom, have more fun as well. I don't know what that looks like yet, but I've never known what any of my big goals have looked like until I've got there. So I'm on the fun part now where I'm just doing stuff.
Nice. And how are you finding dating? Are you finding that challenging with like, do you use apps and things or?
So the apps, I think I said this on a podcast, and I love creatures. I won't kill a wasp, for example. Like I don't kill things, even though they're annoying little shit. So I say this for humor. I would rather consume a small cup of wasps than go on the apps. I know they do work for people, but you got to think, for me personally, a lot of my businesses are online. I use my phone a lot throughout the day for work. I almost think the last thing I want to do at the end of the fucking day is go back on the phone again and start going left and right and deciding if that person is for me. To me, it's just admin. It doesn't bring me joy. I've used them in the past. I know how to write. I know how to take good photos as a copywriter, so I know how to craft a good message. It's just not for me. Naturally now, I using a sort of, I wouldn't even say a strategy because it's not really like that. So the people I've tend to meet, so previous partners, and they haven't worked out more for logistical reasons than anything. Nothing bad's happened. It's more of a case of, I say this to, clients, like stack the decks in your favor. So where does your ideal client hang out? So, I like my fitness, I like my nerdy sci-fi stuff, I like my gym, I like nature and stuff. So I'm kind of doing the things that I would do anyway, and naturally, and obviously, actually meeting, obviously going to a lot, actually, because obviously I'm booked to speak at a lot of entrepreneur and business events. I'm actually just going along now as an attendee and just meeting people and connecting with people naturally. So for me, I mean, you asked a personal question, so I'll give you a personal answer. I won't use them. I don't want to use them. I have done. It didn't bring me joy, and because my background prior to this, I did very well in business, in sort of new business development, breaking new markets. I was the person that won business. That's what I did. I went out there and made stuff happen. The pace of the apps doesn't work for me. It frustrates me. So I just said, well, okay, I'm not going to do that. So I'm backing myself to meet someone in the real world. And if that doesn't happen, I am okay with that, because I would rather that than go on the bloody apps. But that's just me.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was wondering whether you find it more challenging in the modern day to kind of make to date. But I imagine as you are someone who has done quite a bit of work on yourself, it's not actually that challenging.
It's not challenging to meet people. I'd say those of us who've done the sort of entrepreneurial business, inner work stuff, we're actually sort of harder to date, I'd say, because we're aware of our own flaws, we're aware of our own problems.
Yeah.
But we can also see them in other people as well. We can be tricky to date as entrepreneurs because we do weird shit. Like, I've got to be on a webinar at 10 o'clock, or I need to go to this mastermind over in this country. And you're kind of like, what? Why do you need to do that? So I'd say as entrepreneurs, business owners, we can be challenging to date. So it needs a certain type of person who can put up with all the mad things and the ups and downs that we have.
Nice. Other than dating, what's your biggest challenge at the moment? And if anyone's listening, how could they help?
Do you know what? It's a great question. I am I can say this because I was cooking my dinner last night, and I had a really good day at work. I've had a really nice influx of new clients and leads to work with as well, which is lovely. Just come off the back of a holiday with my mum and spent time with my sister, seen some friends, and I remember I put the plate down on the table, and I just kind of looked around, and I'm like, everything's really good at the moment. So, I'm in good shape, and I'm getting in better shape. Got great connections, great friends, lots of fun, all of that stuff, and I'm like, that's a good question, but I'm actually good. I'm actually really good. Like, I don't, and it feels, you remember you said about peace. I'm very much at peace at the moment. If my life stayed as it is now, and yes, obviously, as I said, I'd, would like to meet the person in the family, but if that didn't happen, and this is my existence, I have a great life, great friends, great connections, good hobbies. I've got time to do stuff. My job is helping people. I'm like, what a pretty cool life. So yeah, I'm actually, thank you for asking, but I'm good. I don't need anything.
Yeah, nice place to be. Peaceful.
Thanks, Mum.
All right, let's wrap it up there, shall we?
You
Cheers,
do,
Dan.
Michelle. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much for your time.
No, thank you. All right, cheers, man.
You've been listening to the Ben Price Experience. These conversations are not just for entertainment, they are also an invitation to confront the truth about what you're experiencing in life. An invitation to upgrade your standards and to lead from a more powerful, grounded, and peaceful place, and to start to win the war in your mind. If any of the messages hit home in these conversations that we have, and you want to go deeper, then I recommend applying to join Camp Ochi. That's Camp OCCCE, 3 C's. One conversation can change everything. This is a camp where we take off the masks that we wear as men, and we refuse to engage in kind of the norm. We spend time with each other. We haven't got any phones. There's no hiding. You'll be challenged. It's pretty chilled at the same time, and you'll walk away probably the most clearer that you've felt in a long time. So if that sounds like something you'd like to experience, I'm inviting you to apply. I'm not saying that we don't just take everybody, but yeah, go to the website www.campoc3cs and e.com. All right, thanks for listening. Lots of love, and have a powerful day.